Hi everyone and welcome back to Ready Resto. So with the original shock absorber that was on the car, it was, even though I had filled it up with oil and sort of tried to see if I could get it to work again, it was still leaking oil from this arm here on this side. So what was happening was, I think the seal in there is no good. There is like a rubber seal that sits behind this on the inside. You can't find, or I couldn't find anywhere any kind of seals that you could refurb it ourselves. So I've purchased this unit here, which I've been told is still in good condition, and sort of has been partially restored. It needs a new gasket at the back and it needs some oil, but other than that it should be in working order. So what I would do today is I'll take the cover off on here, make the gasket. I'm going to use the same gasket maker for the differential because it's high pressure sealant, so hopefully that should do the job on this. Going to let it cure for 24 hours before putting any sort of oil back into it, because hydraulic oil can be quite harsh. Yeah, so I mean, I'm hoping this will then fit this onto the car, hoping then that we'll have good shock absorption on both sides of the car, and then we'll be good to go when the front suspension is all done. Okay, so if you ever wondered what's inside of the lever arm, so in there, that is the piston. So there's a piston at the top and the bottom, and obviously when you move the arm, the pistons sort of go back and forth inside, so the oil will sit between those and create resistance, so it stops it from going upwards or downwards. So in my arm that I have on my car, there is a valve here at the front in there. Mine actually turns out it was missing a spring, so there's actually a spring missing from inside of that, so it wasn't creating the pressure when it goes upwards on the one side as well. So I think someone had tried to service the one on the car, lost the spring, put it back together, and it wasn't dampening, so probably when they dumped the oil, that spring must have fallen out in either the bucket or whatever they were using to catch the oil. So this one should have the spring correctly from what I've seen, so I'm going to have to open that up as well and check it before we fill the oil in, just to make sure that that spring is there. Okay, so let's clean up the original gaskets just to see the condition. Okay, so I'm thinking I might just go without the cork on this one. Might just do purely gasket maker on it. It seems to be very sort of damp on there. So even if I do apply it, the gasket maker to that is probably not going to stick at all. Could do with a brand new gasket, but I'm going to try this and see if it works. I mean, it's a relatively cheap fix, and the oil, again, I've got plenty of oil, so if it does leak or doesn't work again, I can try and source another one of these cork gaskets for it, but I think the gasket maker should do the job. Okay, so if you've seen my video on when I redid the oil and the gaskets and so on the rear differential, same thing applies here. When you're applying the gasket maker, don't be too generous with it, because obviously that will then spill into the insides of this. So when you push it down, it's going to go out and in. So yeah, just be very careful when you're putting it around, and try and put it on the outer edges as much as possible, so when it does squeeze, it doesn't go too much on the inside. Just because it will start to dissolve, and if it breaks off and clogs any of the parts inside, that's not a good thing either. Yeah, so just apply it again. You want to put a bead around it. Try and put it again around the inside holes. just so then you don't get anything leaking through the actual screws as well. Okay, so I'm going to use a toothpick as I'm in the kitchen, but you could use anything you have that's sort of fine, just to make sure that it's sort of spread and it's, you know, fairly covered. There's no gaps in between, so you just want to make sure that you've just made sure it's sealed all the way around. Do definitely try not to get this on your hands either. I'd say wear gloves. Just because this stuff is not good for your skin contact. It can cause skin irritation as well. So just be very, very careful, and I highly recommend wearing gloves when you're doing this. Obviously, I'm not wearing gloves now, but hence why I'm using a toothpick and not my fingers to spread the paste itself. Okay, perfect. So when you're putting it back onto the piston itself, it'll only fit one way. So at the bottom of this here, there's sort of ridges, and those ridges align with these here at the bottom. So when you put it back on again, same thing, just make sure that it aligns correctly with that. And then yeah, everything should be okay. Alright. So try and line it up. What I'm going to try and do is line it up as best as I can, so it's as flat as possible, and then just sort of press it into place. So. Okay. So as you can see, even though I've applied the gasket maker, it hasn't really come out on the sides, which is good because that means there's not too much. So that means it's pressed in where it needs to press in, but it hasn't sort of spilled out everywhere, and we haven't put way too much onto that either. Cool. Then all we have to do now is put the screws back in again, and then we fill it up with oil, and hopefully it should be good to go. So it does recommend to set it sets within 2 hours but fully cures within 24. So I'm going to leave it for the full 24 hours before I sort of fill it up with oil or anything like that and check it for leaks. So yeah, hopefully join me again. I'll restart the video tomorrow and we'll fill it up with oil, check the valve and the valve springs, and then yeah, top it up with oil and show you that how stiff it should be when it's all working. Thanks for watching.